like it's 3:05 on the dot. Can everybody hear me well? Yes, good. I see some nods. Wonderful. So welcome, everybody. My name is Gabby Ochoa. I'm the program manager at the Roatan Marine Park. And today we're just going to have a monthly update on what we've been up to in terms of stony coral tissue loss disease. Our idea is to do a meeting every month so that you guys know what we're doing, what are some of the needs that we have as an organization, and where are we with the situation of stony coral tissue loss disease. So if everybody could please mute your mics, that would be wonderful. I will leave some time at the end of the presentation for questions or comments or anything at the end. So please mute your mics if you haven't. And I'll start sharing my screen. Nope. There we go. Wonderful. So I hope everybody can see my screen. As I mentioned, my name is Gabby. Today we're going to do a stony coral tissue loss disease monthly update for the month of February. Let me go back once. Okay. So I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with stony coral tissue loss disease in our meeting, but I'll go ahead and just give a brief overview of what it is. So stony coral tissue loss is a disease that started back in 2014 off the Florida Keys. And this coincided with one of the hottest summers and winters on record, and also some dredging of the Miami port. This is not to say that this is what caused stony coral tissue loss, but these two factors can definitely affect the resilience of corals to disease. Flash forward to 2021, the disease has now spread to 16 countries Caribbean-wide, in the Eastern Caribbean and in the Mesoamerican Reef where we are. It's in Mexico, Belize, and Honduras. It's characterized by sloughing off of the tissue. So basically you see here how the skin is kind of sloughing off this pillar coral, leaving a white skeleton. And it can be transmitted from corals of the same species, but also corals of different species. So here we see a mace coral that was probably transmitting the disease to this brain coral. And obviously this is a coral that has already died. So unfortunately, in September 2020, we discovered stony coral tissue loss here in Roatan. It was first detected off Flowers Bay on the south shore of Roatan. And since then, the Roatan Marine Park has been working really hard on monitoring this disease, how the disease is spreading, what corals is it affecting, but also intervention, which is actually treating some of these corals. In terms of our monitoring so far, we've done over 20,000 observations of coral colonies, and we've monitored approximately 22 sites island-wide. We do this monitoring on a monthly basis, and we're basically assessing what colonies have the disease, what colonies have symptoms, how many colonies have died of the disease. And what we've seen so far, we've assessed 26 different species of corals in our monitorings, and out of those 26, 23 have shown susceptibility to stony coral tissue loss disease. Among the corals that have the highest level of mortality, but also the highest rates of infection are brain corals, symmetrical brain coral, pillar corals, and boulder star corals. We've also seen corals that we didn't know had susceptibility are now getting the disease. For example, lettuce corals and cactus corals are showing symptoms of stony coral tissue loss disease. Another type of monitoring we've been doing has been manta tows. This is basically a person has a bit of a clipboard that's tied up to the end of a boat, and he's slowly towed and is taking GPS coordinates. Somebody's on the boat taking GPS coordinates. The person normally raises the hand when they see a site that has high prevalence of stony coral tissue loss disease. This was back in November 2020. And you could see at that point, we knew that stony coral tissue loss was up to here, where we have Blue Bahia, the dock of Blue Bahia. That was in November. Now in 2021, we know that on the south band, stony coral tissue loss is all the way to French Key, and on the north band, all the way to Mace Coral. And today I got a report from Trip, actually, who told me it's already at Polytilly Wall. So it is moving very fast. This is not to say that all this area has stony coral tissue loss. It's small patches or big patches of the disease. So it's not that all this coral has it, all this reef has it, but many sites have it. And so, some of the sites that you see here are sites that we've either monitored or that we've done intervention in. So what's the intervention? We have been applying antibiotic treatment to different species of corals. This is a marine epoxy that was designed by a company called Ocean Alchemist, and it's specifically for corals. That way corals can actually absorb the antibiotic. It's mixed in a 1-part antibiotic, which is amoxicillin, and an 8-part epoxy. So 400 grams of base 2B to 50 grams of amoxicillin. This can make about 6 syringes, and we can treat 6 to 18 corals per bottle. So on an average dive, if we have about 3 people, we can treat 6 to 18 corals. If we have more people, then we can use more epoxy and treat more corals. And here I have a little video for you of what this looks like. Let's see if I can play it. So this is a video of somebody applying the epoxy on the coral. We try to put it in that boundary between the newly dead coral and the live coral. So we can't treat every coral out there. We wish we could. So we have to be very selective. So we're basically selecting corals that are structure builders. These are large, old corals. We're choosing corals that have a relative size that we think are mature enough to reproduce. So we're also selecting those that have a localized reproductive capacity, corals surrounded by other live colonies. It doesn't make much sense to be treating a huge pillar coral that is nowhere near other pillar corals, because in the future, this coral is not going to be able to reproduce. We're also focusing on corals that are categorized as endangered. For example, pillar corals are on the IUCN Red List, also some of the star corals. We're looking also at the percentage of the coral that's unaffected. We want to treat a coral that has between 50 to 75% live coral to treat it. Lesion abundance is also a determining factor. We want to treat corals that have less than 5 lesions, and also iconic corals. So I know I contradict myself because we say we don't want to treat that one coral that's all alone, but if that coral is iconic, something that divers use for navigation, then we're going to treat that huge colony. And people always tell me like, oh, you're not going to save all the corals. No, we are not going to save all the corals. But if we can save those large corals that have reproductive capacity that can withstand this disease to a point where they can reproduce in the future, then that to us is a success. Okay. So in terms of the intervention, we've engaged about 31 volunteers. We've intervened 11 sites, mostly on the south shore from Flowers Bay west to Keyhole, and then on the north band from Western Wall all the way to Liam's Lair, I think is the name. We've treated 515 colonies. And in terms of the assessment, we always have to go back and find these corals to ensure that they survive. Some corals need only 1 treatment. After 1 treatment, they're fine. But some corals will get a new lesion after 1 treatment, so we have to retreat that lesion. Some corals will not survive after treatment. For example, mace corals and pillar corals are very difficult to treat because mace corals, because of their septa, it's very hard to get the antibiotic there, and pillar corals, because their tentacles are normally out during the day. So putting that epoxy is very hard to put. And we normally have a map. This is what we were calling treehouse, but it's really butcher's bank. And you can see some of these are our corals that we've tagged and treated. So once we go back, you can see here's a coral that we treated. A month later, we can see that the disease has stopped. How do we know that? Because the coral is already covered with algae and we don't see that white, newly dead coral. Sometimes we go back and the lesion that we treated right here, this one's the one we treated, is cured, but now the coral has another lesion. So we have to treat that lesion as well. So how can you help us? Number 1, you can alert other divers. You can share this information with the guests that are coming into your dive shops. We know that this isn't something that's easy to share, but we think that people need to know what's happening. This could be done in your briefing. I know that several dive shops are briefing their guests about it so that when they're in the water, they know what they're looking at. Also, they're briefing them in terms of the decontamination procedures for stony coral tissue loss disease. You can decontaminate your gear if you're going to the east side of the island. At this point, we could say that half of the island has stony coral tissue loss disease. So if you're diving, say you're doing Texas in the morning, then going to Sequest or Overheat, you don't have to decontaminate your gear. All of these sites already have stony coral tissue loss. But if you're planning a big trip to the Seamounts, or you're planning a trip to Barbaretta or Pigeon Key, please decontaminate your gear before you go to these sites. And please dive healthy sites first and sick sites later. You can also help us reassess the effectiveness of our treatment. So we've placed pretty large tags that say you can help, email this tag to sctld@roatanmarinepark.org. If you can send us follow-up images of corals, then that means we don't have to go and reassess that coral. If you send us a picture of a coral that's been treated and is now healthy, then we don't have to go back and treat that coral again. So snap photos of the tag, the whole coral colony, and any lesions or lines, especially near the nail where it's placed. Make sure you get top images of the coral and side images. And if you can get a landscape image, that's really good as well. You can upload your photos to our form, which is in our website on the SCTLD section, but you can straight up email it to us at sctld@roatanmarinepark.org. This will help us assess how the corals are responding to our treatment. And if you get a chance to revisit that coral again and take another picture, that would be even more it will be more helpful, because that way we have a time series of how the disease is progressing, but also how the coral is responding. Volunteer with us. We need a lot of divers. However, we can't just have any divers come with us and apply treatment. Applying treatment requires very good buoyancy, buoyancy that I think, from my experience, not all divers are familiar with, because you have to be pretty steady on a coral, and you're using both of your hands to treat this coral. So we need divers, preferably dive professionals. So if you're a dive professional, you have some time and you would like to volunteer with us, please put your number on the chat or send us an email. We also need dive professionals to help us make maps. As you notice, every dive site that we go to, we have to map that dive site and map where all our corals are at so that we can reassess them. We also need photographers. So if you do any underwater photography, you want to volunteer with us. We assume that most photographers already have good buoyancy, and also people to help us input data. We are generating a lot of data every time we go and monitor 22 sites. We have a lot of data that needs to be input. Every time we do intervention, we're collecting data on the corals. For example, how many lesions did it have? What was the size of the coral? What was the treatment? So we need a lot of volunteers to help us input that data. If you're a dive shop operator, consider choosing an assessment site for your dive. When you're planning your week, try to go to some of these sites that we're already intervening so that you can help us reassess and you can send us some pictures. You can also provide boat time for our volunteers, but if you can't do that, you can also let us tag along. So if you're doing a dive and you have, say, room for two, then we can go, Marine Park staff can go on your boat and treat corals as your clients are doing a fun dive. And finally, you can give back to the reef. So if you know people that want to support the Roatan Marine Park efforts, you can donate to a link on our website too. The epoxy is quite expensive. Every jar of epoxy costs us about $70. We have to get that in the US, and we're also paying staff, boat time, fuel. So consider giving back to the reef. I know we all depend on the reef and we all want the best for the reef. I want to thank our funder, especially the Swiss Cooperation, Marfond, and the Bayless National Marine Park. And I especially want to thank some of the divers that have been collaborating with us. Clear Waters, who's been providing boat time, same with Roatan Divers, also Ocean Connections. Patrice from Grand Blue has also been providing a support and tank refill. So thank you so much. And if you're not following us already, make sure to follow us on social media. Facebook handle is Roatan MP. Instagram handle is official Roatan Marine Park. There's also a Stony Coral Tissue Loss Response Team group. You can join, and if you need to answer some questions, and if you answer them correctly, then you'll be admitted. So make sure to follow us. We're sharing a lot of information in our social media platforms. And with that, I finish my presentation. So if you have any questions, feel free to open the mic or just type them on the chat box. Yes, we hear you, Denise.
Okay, I hear you with echo, that's right. I'm kind of disappointed I don't see more dive shop owners or managers in the meeting. What we have been doing as a dive center, as a small dive center at that, is not that hard. We just bring you guys along, and I think that we should, as a dive community, take the real weight of this issue and just open 2 spots in our boat for you guys to come and treat corals. Have you talked to other dive center owners about this possibility?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite frank, Denise, I don't know what else we can do, right? We're hosting meetings on a regular basis. We've emailed dive shops to tell them that we're having meetings. We've done one-on-ones. We've gone to the dive shops to explain what we're doing and also to invite them to the meetings. This meeting is being recorded and we will share with other dive shops, but we haven't had the response that we expected. I don't know if Sarah or Damaris, who are here, would like to add anything in terms of the work of the.
Well, Gabi, thank you for the information. I still think that we should maybe address one of these meetings only for dive shop owners or managers that would want to be more active into this. It really impresses me that it's only a handful of people that are actively doing something for this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're a dive shop operator, so is Patrice. Trip, you also work in a dive shop. I don't know if you guys know what the best way to reach dive shops could be. Do we need to host a physical meeting? We can do that, but COVID restrictions and all, maybe we can have it outside. I'm open to suggestions of how we can engage more of the dive community. Jen, you're also a dive professional. So I don't know what you guys think.
Okay, thank you, Gabi.
And Trip has a question on the chat box. Do you have any statistics about how successful the treatment has been? So from the data, we know that the treatment is about 86% successful, but us in Roatan, I would say from 50 to 70, because we're also treating some of these highly susceptible species, and the treatment isn't always successful in pillar corals and mace corals. So a lot of the corals that we're trying to treat, sometimes they don't make it all the way. But we are working really hard on our reassessment so that we can reassess all the corals that we're treating. And we're not treating corals without tags, because a coral without a tag is going to be a coral that's going to be very hard to find. No worries, Cindy, you haven't missed much. We were in the question section. So if you have any questions specifically, Cindy, we're just talking about how we can engage more of the dive community. So I'm still open to suggestions of whether we should have a physical meeting with the dive shops. I know we've done one-on-ones. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm very willing to have your people on my boat while we do the dive sites. So how can we work out to schedule it? Like say, can you communicate us the dive site that you need to cover? So when we go at those places, we're gonna send you a message and allow your people to come in our boat.
Yeah, definitely. I'll either Damaris, who's leading a lot of the field work, will contact you, or myself, and we'll let you know some of the sites that we need to reassess. But sometimes for the reassessment, it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need marine park staff. You just need a photographer on the boat. You take the dive site map, and then you try to find all these corals and take pictures. And just by doing that, you're helping us. You're saving a whole marine park staff trip if you can do that. So if you have any dive professionals or photographers on your boat, you can do that without our staff.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Wonderful. Well, I don't see any other questions. I will leave. Oh, Denise, you have a question. What is the plan with certifications? Okay. Denise, if you want, can you type the question? And Cindy, what type of certifications do you mean? Okay, so we weren't really talking about any of the coral restoration activities, but we are starting up to engage more volunteers and people in the project. If you have worked with us before, you've been trained by Trip before, then you can just volunteer with us. But the idea is to have another separate meeting where we'll talk just about our coral project, and we will continue engaging volunteers and engaging other dive shops in the project. So if you have any dive shops that are interested in joining the coral restoration project, you can email coralrestoration@roatanmarinepark.org. And Denise says, could you share a list of dive sites you need to reassess so we can share it in the Roatan Dive Manager's Facebook page? You can actually go into our website in the form to submit tags. If you scroll all the way down, you will find the dive site maps, but we can also email you all a list of the sites that have been assessed so that you guys can go take some pictures. And Cindy's asking, is there a list of which tag numbers? Oh, hold on. Let me read that. Sorry, Cindy, just scrolled back up. Is there a list of which tag numbers are at which site when we went recently to share pics? Okay, so again, in the form, and actually I think what I can do is see, Kathy, do you have that open by any chance, the form? Maybe we can show you exactly. So in the submit picture form, at the bottom, you can find all the dive site maps, and each map has like the tag numbers. But we can also make a list of where you have the reassessment and which tags are at each dive site, if that's easier. So here we have, this is the SCTLD page, and you can go there where you says, have you seen this tag? And then there you can, this is the form to submit pictures. You just have to put your name, email, dive site, and then on the bottom, you can find all the maps. So we need to update it and send more maps. This is actually Butchers, not Treehouse. We also have Aquario. We have Overheat, and Liam's Lair, and I think Manowar. And Damaris, can you share what other dive sites we've done?
What? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sarah. My bad. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. So we went to Sequest and we went to Mace. And those are the new ones. And yeah. Oh. Okay, so Chief Quarters, we went yesterday, and Patrick Stash. Yeah, those are the new ones.
Great. Thank you. We also have Western Wall and Triple D, Keyhole. Those also have tags, but they're the smaller tags that it will be kind of hard to find. But we will be updating every week all the dive sites that we're going, all the dive site maps, so that you guys can stay informed. Cindy, I didn't quite understand. You said there was no information for this. What did you mean by that, or did you have another? Had to input manually the site. You mean you would prefer a drop down? Couldn't get from our photos where they were. Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yes, that's a good point. We only have codes on the corals, so it's kind of hard to know what you're looking for. That's exactly right. We will share the codes of the corals and what they mean, and maybe we'll redo the maps with common names. I think that will be easier to put like pillar or brain, just so that you have an idea of what it is that you're looking for. If you have tons of pictures, you can just email them on a drive to me, to SCTLD@Roatan Marine Park, or you can send them to Gabby@Roatan Marine Park. Just put them on a drive and email them to us so that you don't have to be inputting each picture in the form. Did you have another question, Cindy? Yeah. What is the process for training new volunteers and the process of the application? That's a great question. So right now, the issue that we've been having is that many people want to volunteer, but very few people have the buoyancy that we need. So to be frank, we haven't taken volunteers in a long time, but now we've reached a point where if we don't take volunteers, then we're not going to be able to do this. So send me your, I have your contact, Cindy, and we'll be contacting you, of course. So if you're having volunteer, you're a dive professional, you have time to volunteer, send us your phone number or send me an email so I can add you to the chat. Right now, most volunteers will just be applying. That is pretty simple. There's not much training to be done. There's always Marine Park staff with you. They'll be the people taking the data, telling you which corals to treat. We might also have you put some of the tags. So right now we need volunteers. We need volunteers for application, photography, and maps. So if you don't have very good buoyancy, but you can make maps, that could be helpful. So send us an email, let us know what's your expertise or what would you like to do, and then we can schedule your volunteer time. It says here, there were issues with application with new volunteers. I would be happy to help train new people. That would be wonderful, Cindy. Contact Damaris so that we can arrange that, because we always need people. And also, if you are working on a dive shop that wants to take people, we are happy to come over. You just tell us what dive site we're coming, and we can go and treat some corals.
Hi, I just want to say something because I was reading what Cindy wrote, and I just want to say, like, I understand there's a lot of tags everywhere, but don't worry because we have the database, right? So we'll be analyzing the photos, and it's super helpful when you upload the photos, and then we can just check and compare with the other photos that we have. So we'll try to put the database with the number, the common name, and where it's located, so it's easier for you guys to know.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. And I have here, thanks for the update. We are avid snorkelers in West End, snorkeler mostly on the inner reef. We have seen the disease, but it sounds like you're concentrating on outside the reef. Keep up the good work. No, you can also send us reports. If you have a site that you've seen many corals that could be treated, send it to us and we'll try to go to that site. We're kind of focusing on places that have large coral coverage and places, and sorry, my camera is up there, places with high coral coverage, and also places that are where the disease is just getting to. So for example, we've been concentrating our efforts in the Mudhole area. We're going to Turquoise Bay on Monday, and we'll be doing some sites there near Turquoise Bay because the disease is just moving there. So we have a higher chance to save some of these very large corals. So yeah, send us a report, let us know where you've seen them, send us some pictures. The form is not just for tags, you can also send us pictures of other corals and just in different sites. So you don't have to just send tag pictures. And you're welcome. Any other questions? All right, well, I don't see any more questions. If you do come up with questions later, feel free to email me. Yeah, we'll be in touch with the people that want to volunteer soon. So expect a message from us. I don't have anything else to add. Thank you everybody for being here in this meeting. Please, please, please help us spread the word. If you know other dive operators, other dive professionals, please help us spread the word. And thank you very much. And I'll see you in March in our next monthly update.